As you work in Word, you may from time to time decide that heading styles are precisely what you need to make your document just more readable for the people who are going to be viewing that document. Or you may decide that the whole organization of the document is a little off, and you'd really like to sit down and make sure that the outline levels are working correctly for you. But did you know that the heading styles and an outline view work hand in glove? So as you create an outline from scratch and you attach the different levels to that outline, you are also adding in heading styles. Or as you add in heading styles, did you realize that you were automatically creating an outline? Well, you are. And so today we're going to look at that. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and let's look at Word and the outline view. I have created a very simple document here of just random words, and the first thing that I might want to do is to add in some heading styles for what would be, say, chapter and subchapter headings, that kind of thing. And so for my first line, I might decide that I want to make it heading 1. And that was certainly easy enough to do. And then with this full paragraph, I may decide to just keep it as text. I may even decide that I want to indent it just a bit. So there's some differentiation between the heading style and the text. Well, now down to the next single line here, I may decide that I want to make it heading 2. And that was easy enough to do as well. And it also has its own corresponding text. So let's go ahead and indent that just so it's a little easier to read. So we have heading 1, we have heading 2, and then let's say that this third single line is actually heading 3. And we'll click on it, and it has changed formatting as well. And then for our last line, let's go back to heading 1 and kind of set off that particular paragraph as well. So I have in some way decided how this document is sort of outlined by simply defining the heading styles. Generally, you might even think of heading styles very much like outlines, where the heading style 1 would be on the far left, and then heading 2 might be indented just a bit, and heading 3 might be indented just a bit as well. Well, if you're not sure that the heading styles that you are using are really consistent with the logic of what your outline of your document is, you can go to View in the tabs above the ribbon, and View is one of the very last tabs on the right, so we'll click on it. And then we're going to go over to the left to the Views group, and one of the last buttons there in the upper right, at least the way it shows in my ribbon, is Outline. So I'm going to click on that, and it brings up a contextual tab just for outlines. Now, interestingly enough, most contextual tabs show up on the far right, but this outlining tab is between File and Home on the far left. Well, let's look at this then in some detail. As I look at my text, the heading styles have now a plus with a circle around it. So here is heading 1. Coming down, I could very easily find heading 2 because it has the plus with the circle, but it's also indented. And then as I come down farther, I have, well, that's actually a minus sign, interestingly enough, but it is heading 3. And then the very last line here is again that plus sign showing that we have another heading style. The text paragraphs have little dots, little circles, notating that they don't have a heading style, that they are just part of the text of the document. Now let's look at this in a little different way. I'm going to click on the first line here, which we know is a heading. It's the first level of the outline. And as I look at the outline tools at the top left, it says, yes, this is level 1. Now when I come down to the next very obvious heading and click on it, it says, well, you have defined this as heading 2, which equates to level 2 in the outline. And when I come down to our third choice, it says, okay, that heading 3 is essentially the same, or at least it corresponds with level 3 of the outline. And then coming down to our last line, it says, no, now we're back to level 1. If I click where I know we have text, and it's just text, no heading styles, it even tells me that I have body text now instead of some sort of a heading style. Well, let's say that on this first line, I decide that it should be level 2, and I need to add a line above that showing that there's another new level 1. All I need to do is go out to the right. I can demote or simply indent to the right and change that from level 1 to level 2. And by the way, the heading style also changes from heading 1 to heading 2. Now I could do the opposite. Let's say that this level 3 is actually a level 1. Well, I could choose from the drop-down and select level 1, or depending on where I am, I could go to the left and promote this and do level 1 that way. But either way, you can see how easy it is to change the heading styles and promote and demote my text so that it makes sense for my document. And sometimes with large documents, it is so easy to get off a level within an outline. Well, let me do some undos here and move these back the way they're supposed to be. Now, that was looking at the levels and promoting and demoting. But we also have these 4 buttons down here where we can move an item up in the actual document or move it down. And when I move a heading down, it should also move the text. Let's see if that is correct. So I'm clicked here in level 1. I'll click the down arrow. No, it just moved the heading and not the text that correlates with it. Whereas with heading styles, it would move the whole paragraph. So that's something that you would need to remember. Let's undo. Let's say that I need to move this heading 3 up. Well, I could do that as well. Now notice that it skipped the text and it just moved up underneath level 2. Let's move it up again. So now it's level 3, but it's under that whole level 1 and text. So I can move these up and down. Now I'm back to where I was. Well, let's also look at the plus, which is to expand, and the minus, which is to collapse. Let's click here with our level 2, and let's collapse. And what it did was it hid the text that was related to that level. So if I click in the heading 1, the level 1 here, and I also collapse it, it hides that text that was under heading 1. Now, if I want to see it and bring it back, I can expand it by clicking on the plus sign. So I click on the level and then click on the plus sign to bring it back. Easy enough to do. On the right, we have Show Level. And let's see what that does. So we're going to click the drop down here. And I'm going to start with Show Level 3 first. And when I select Level 3, notice that it also shows Levels 1 and 2. So it's the levels above the level that I have selected, but it hides the text. Well, let's go with Level 2. This time, it hid Level 3 along with the text, and all I see is Level 2 and anything above it, which is Level 1. If I go to Level 1 then, all I see is Level 1, none of the corresponding text. Well, let's click on that drop down again and come down to All Levels. Below that, it says we could show the text formatting. When we click in that box, it shows us the heading styles. Now, depending on the complications within your document, this may be helpful, or it may just be something that you find, well, kind of in the way. So you can turn it off or turn it on, depending on your choice. And then we have here within our text paragraphs that are 2, 3, 4 lines long. Maybe we only want to show the first line so that we get the idea that there is text that is typed in below a heading style, but we don't need to see the entire paragraph. So again, we can just show the first line, and anytime you have that setting on, if you follow that first line over to the far right, you get an ellipsis showing that there's more, but it's just hidden. And those are all of your outline tools. So we're going to go to the far right and close Outline View. And so we can very easily see that our heading styles and our outline view are very much interconnected and could be a fantastic tool if you have a fairly complicated document and you need to get all those levels and heading styles working together so that you have a consistent document. To learn even more, be sure to go to mymcpl.org/online learning for such great resources as Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, Learning Express Library, and Udemy Business. We also premiere new videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. If you miss a video premiere, you'll still be able to find it later when it's convenient for you. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, and you can find us on YouTube by going to our MCPL MO channel.